Hi guys, welcome back. Now, just over a year ago, I don't know whether some of you have seen the video, some of you might not. If you want, go back and have a look. I bought my first horsebow, and it was from Top Archery, and it was billed and advertised as a Mongolian style horsebow. I think it was £98 or something like that. Available from Top Archery and Amazon in the UK. I don't know about anywhere else. And I was excited. I thought, oh, first horsebow. I'd been watching guys shooting them. I thought, right, I'm going to take a plunge. And I bought a horsebow. I unpacked it on video, and initially I was like, oh, this is quite nice. I quite like this. And then I shot it. Now the first thing, if you've seen the video, the very first time I drew it to full draw, it cracked. There was a crack, and it was one of the top seat. Well, it was the top seat. One of the, I think it was just glue in the top seat. It come loose. Now the bow itself was 30-pound draw weight at 28 inches. Supposedly you could draw it to 32. Now I tried it. And I would never have trusted it past 29. I never actually drew it to 29 inches, or if I did, it wasn't. I only just got it there, because once you got to about 26 inches, the stacking. Now, for those of you who don't know what stacking is, it's basically the construction of the bow. It starts to bind up on itself until you get to a certain point where it just physically will not bend anymore. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but it usually happens in laminated bows that have got they haven't been thought out properly. And you sometimes get it with fiberglass bows that have maybe been made out of a couple of laminations of fiberglass matting, as well as the resin. And that's what this is. Now, it was advertised as wood and epoxy resin. The only place I can find any wood in the bow was in the sears, and they were horrible. They hadn't been sanded down, they'd just been dipped in varnish and black paint, and they were horrible, felt horrible. It had the string bridges on the sears, and they had literally just been nailed on with a nail gun. And there were just two blocks of high density rubber with a nail gun, pneumatic nail gun, just nailed on. Horrible. So they wouldn't have lasted long anyway. So now the sears have actually, well, anyway, we'll get to that. The bow itself was covered in what appeared to be a black fake leather with 1 millimetre cord serving around the sears, and then some 2 millimetre leather thonging around the grip. And it didn't look too bad, but I shot it, and it was horrible. It really was horrible. It was very slow for what it was supposed to be. It stacked something chronic. Vibration was terrible. It really kicked you in the hand with wood or carbon arrows. It didn't matter, because I borrowed some of the lads' arrows, and it just kicked you in the hands. It like a lot of hand shock. So I thought, okay, right, and I was going to just put it to one side initially after I'd shot it for about a month, and I put it on the wall, leave it there. But I thought, right. And I stripped it down. I thought, let's see what's going on in it, and we'll have a look. And I've done a couple of videos on the rebuild. And when I took it apart, I was quite surprised. The first thing I noticed, none of the glue on that was binding the leather covering, or the whipping, or the serving, or anything like that, none of it was dry. It was still tacky as hell, to the point where you could actually put your hand on it and pick the bow up just by the tackiness of the glue on your hand. It's horrible. And on the limbs, I'll find some photo of it. I can't find the original video. The video seems to have disappeared. On the limbs, there was this really thick, about 1 inch thick, high density rubber that covered the entire length of the bow, of the back of the bow, to give it that rounded profile. And it was literally it was stuck on with the same glue, and you literally could pull it off and stick it. And I was actually throwing it at the back of the door, and if I got it right, it would actually stick on the door, and it stayed there. Really black, horrible stuff, really thick. I mean, eventually I stuck it together, and you could have used it as a truncheon. You could have beat somebody to death with this rubber. It was such high density and so heavy. Unbelievable. So got rid of that, and then I rebuilt it. And the first thing I did was I took the sears off. When I first drew it, one of these cracked. So I took them, well, took everything down, took these off. I wasn't going to initially, but then I decided to. Took them off, sanded them down a little bit, reprofiled the string grooves, and then glued them back on using some epoxy resin, both ends. So now they're much better. I didn't bother reprofiling, but they do feel much better. In the centre, I put an extra strip of wood in there, just to build it out a bit. I stayed away from the bending zones completely, so I wasn't adding anything to the stiffness. And then I recovered the whole thing. Now the glue that was on there, I could have probably just stuck the leather onto there, but it was horrible. It took me 2 bottles of acetone to strip off all the glue residue. But anyway, tidied it up, and that's when I realised that they'd been telling porkies it wasn't made with epoxy and wood, it's purely fiberglass. And looking at the ends when I took the sears off, there's like 2, possibly 3 layers of fiberglass matting sandwiched together with fiberglass resin. I know fiberglass resin. I used to work in the motor trade. I've used a lot of it over the years, including with matting, and that's what this is. It's got a smell to it, and a feel to it, and it's pure fiberglass, apart from the sears, and that's the only thing that's wood. So in a way, it is sort of wood and resin, but it is what it is. So anyway, after I covered it in white leather, that's stuck down with proper glue, proper Evo, and then I reserved all the joints. The serving is terrible. It's because I can't see a bloody thing, and I thought to myself, well, you don't need to be able to see to do serving. Whipping, you do. But I've got it done, and I've redone the handle, and I've put some cord, like the red cord. Is it red? I think. I've bound the cord, the grip up with some cord, and I've actually put a ridge in there, so I know it's sort of an arrow pass, but not an arrow pass. It's just so I know where to put my hand a little bit more. It's a bit more tactile. So there we go. So I have shot it since I've rebuilt it, but I just thought I'd do a review. So it's a Top Archery Mongolian style horsebow from Amazon or Top Archery. Now at the time I said don't buy it because it was horrible. The stacking on it is terrible. It still stacks. I couldn't get rid of the stacking. And I think that's to do with the fact it's fiberglass matting, at least 3 laminations of fiberglass matting, and they're going to work against each other unless you lay it properly, as in like you crosswise and things like that. Otherwise, it's just going to act, and I think that's what's happened. They've laid the matting in all the same directions, so when they built it, they've probably just cut strips off a roll, yeah, all going in the same direction, because believe it or not, a lot of fiberglass resin and mattings, a lot of fiberglass mats do have a grain to them, and they're designed to be laid across, and then you lay it across, and you lay it across, but they're not designed, a lot of them are not designed for making strips, for doing strips. So that's what I think the problem is. Or if they are, they're designed for layer of glass, layer of matting, layer of wood, and then maybe another layer of matting, but that's it. But this is 3 layers of matting. It works, but it's not what it's supposed to be. Anyway, so what we're going to do now, now the first time I used it, I had a problem stringing it. It was quite stiff. It does string a little bit better now than it used to. So what we'll do is we'll just string it up, and then we'll do some shooting with it. It never is very, you don't exactly look graceful when you're stringing these bows, and this one especially doesn't like to be, like, it would be easier if I could actually see what I'm doing instead of doing everything by feel, because I can't get the bloody string on the sear. Right. Right, put a little bit more effort into it. There we go. Right, so ease off easily. Make sure that everything's in place. Yes, it is. That's not straight. Yeah, that's okay. This end's not straight. There we are. Right, so what does it feel like to draw? Yeah, it still stacks. It has loosened up a little bit, but it still stacks. And I don't think you're ever going to be able to do anything about that unless you really stripped one of like the limbs down. But that wouldn't be there'd be no point to that, not for the price of it. However, what I would say is if you're looking for something that's relatively cheap that you want to customize, and like say you've got a 26, 27, 28 inch draw length, this could be useful for you. £100, which is about 110 US, I think. And to use as a project, I mean, you could do some nice stuff with it. You could reprofile these seers. You could even cut them down and completely reshape them, turn them into like a Hungarian style or whatever. So you could do things with it. But as it was, as advertised, if that's what you want, as in a Mongolian style horsebow, I would stay away from it. I mean, as you can see, it's flexible enough. There's very little twist in it from side to side. So in that respect, it's not bad. But there's a lot of vibration. I mean, you can hear it. There's a lot of vibration in that. It's the whole thing is very tense, and you can feel it. Let's go. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not too bad in terms of, but while the vibration doesn't last very long, only about 5 seconds, it is very strong initially, and you do get a hand shock. Right, so let's go and shoot it. Okay guys, so we're going to take a few shots with this top archery longbow. But to be honest with you, I don't like shooting it. I do shoot it, but I don't like to. I think I've got trust issues with it. I don't really trust it enough to make it a regular shooter. But it's a bow for the collection. But just to show you what it shoots like, what it looks like when you shoot it. I did replace the string because the string was absolutely horrible, and it was a cheap one, and I personally don't think it was strong enough, it wasn't thick enough. But anyway, so first shot. See, a hell of a lot of hand shock. Now really, a bow made of fiberglass shouldn't really be giving you a lot of hand shock, but this does. It shoots well enough. And I don't know whether you heard it there, but I've just put 2 in the same place. We're just doing 5, just to demonstrate that it does shoot without cracking. Yeah, I re-glued the seers, and they seem to be a lot more comfortable with themselves now. And in case you've noticed, I do shoot Mediterranean with this. It's just about long enough to allow for a Mediterranean string release. You can feel it. it's borderline, but it's close enough. And it only really, you feel it a little bit on your top finger. Right, there we go. Would I buy it again? No. I'm sort of glad I did, but if I had to buy it again, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't buy it again. I wouldn't buy it. Would I recommend anybody else buy it? I can't say, to be honest, because I don't know whether I just got a lemon or not. Because I've got two other top archery bows, and they are both brilliant. I've got another white one up there, which is a Hungarian style longbow, and it is beautiful to shoot. No stacking, really smooth, but this one just isn't. Now, whether I got a lemon or not, I don't know, which is why I won't recommend bows. I'll recommend people don't get, but I won't recommend people do, because they might get a lemon and then blame me. Just like I think I might have got a lemon I got here. But the build quality in comparison to the other top archery bows I've got was substandard. It wasn't as good as the others. Whether it was built by somebody on a Friday afternoon wanting to get home, or somebody who got the sack the next day for shoddy workmanship, I don't know. Probably never will. But at the end of the day, it's a bow. It's something you can do something with, and if it's well, actually, I won't even say if it's all you can afford to get one, because that little Hungarian one, that was about the same price. That cheapest bow on Amazon one, which is a recurve, was about the same price. There are other options out there for a Mongolian style horsebow, which would probably be about a better bet at the same price, just because if this one was a lemon, others maybe as well. Anyway, hope you found that interesting, not too boring. Stay safe, keep slinging the sticks, and we shall talk again soon. Cheers, guys.